Greetings and welcome to my garage. Today we're going to put MCE fender flares on a Jeep Wrangler. So behind me here we have a 97 Jeep Wrangler, and it has the stock front fenders on it. It has a 4-inch lift, some minor modifications. Today we're going to put 3-inch MCE fender flares on it, which will open up for future modifications to run bigger tires and get to a lot more wheel travel without going to body lifts. So stay tuned, here we go. So here we have the standard fender, the stock fender for the 97 TJ. There's 31-inch tires underneath it. So you can see what it looks like with the 4-inch lift. And then we'll come over here and we've already cut in the first MCE fender. That thing, I really like what it looks like. It gives it more of an aggressive stance, and it definitely opens it up for additional clearance to get bigger tires on it, and obviously grant more wheel travel. So this side's not completely done yet. The fender flare is mounted, or I'm sorry, the new fender is mounted, but the lights aren't done yet, and it's not trimmed out with paint underneath to hide the newly exposed green or white paint. So nice thing, what I really like about these MCE fender flares, doggone it, I keep calling them flares, they're fenders, but they're kind of they're a plastic type material. I don't remember what they called them, but they are guaranteed for the rest of your life, the buyer's life, and the limitations of the warranty are nothing. They guarantee them unconditionally against breakage. So you smash it into a tree and actually manage to break that, then they guarantee to replace it. So the nice thing, what I like about this is if you do get into a tree, that piece of plastic will flex instead of transferring all the energy into the body of the Jeep and deflecting other sheet metal. Rather than, you know, like over here, hasn't happened yet, but you get this fender into a tree, and when the fender starts folding up, then it's going to push energy into the hood or the grill or the panel back there by the door. So just opens up a whole lot of additional opportunity for things to go wrong. So without any more rambling, we'll get into actually modifying this. So we are going to actually cut this fender. It's going to cut well, about right here. We're going to cut all this top part off, and you know, it's a little traumatizing the first time you go cutting on your Jeep like that, but it's not so bad once you get started. Okay, so the first step where we begin, one, we've got to take all this plastic off and remove the lights and remove the hood hold down up on top. So we'll need a 15mm socket to pull out the hood hold down up on top. And you want to save that because we're going to reuse it. Now behind it there should be a rubber bumper, and that bumper is what your hood lays down on whenever it comes down today. We are not going to be reusing that. The new fender, we're going to cut the old fender, and the new MCE fender will lay on top of the old fender, which will provide the space that the old rubber grommet used to provide, so it doesn't get reused. You can set it aside, sell it on eBay. So the side marker light, just give it a twist in the back, and then that pops right out. And the turn signal light, surely you've had to change your turn signal bulb by now, but if you haven't, same thing, it just twists and then it rolls and comes right out. And well, I didn't bring it over here, but you need a pair of dikes to cut a couple zip ties in the back so that the lights will drop down out of the way. I'll get those whenever I get up in a minute. And then we're going to need 5/16 wrenches and probably a pair of pliers to get all these little body molding bolts off to get the plastic out of the way. a ratcheting 5/16 sure does make life a lot easier. Okay, there we are. The light bulbs have been disconnected and the plastic has been removed, and so we are ready for the next step. So I'm going to get some stuff and clean this up because we are going to use a template and draw out a line on here, and it'll be our cut line. So be right back. Alright, included in the kit is a template that will be used to identify where we need to make a cut on the fender. It's a long piece of paper, and there's a lot of, it doesn't come pre-trimmed. Once you open the box, and you'll have to take a pair of scissors and cut along the black line to cut this template out. On the driver's side, it lays upright with the text up, and when you get the passenger side, then you flip it upside down. So there's a hole, or there's a mark, actually, I don't know, there we go. There's a mark here that indicates the center of where your bolt hole was for your hood hold down. So I'm going to lay that in place. And this isn't, I mean, this is important, don't get me wrong, but it's not super critical yet, because what we're going to do is cut the part of the fender off that we don't want to keep, and then the part that is left behind gets covered up by the new MCE fender. So here we go. I'm going to just trace around this. Okay, that gives us our cut line on the top, and now we have to establish the cut line that's going to come up here to intersect with our horizontal line. And you can, I mean, you could freehand it, but, well, let's take a look on the other side. So, you know, you see, or you can see the cut edge. So the idea is to make it follow the existing fender line. This is not cut, and then here's where my cut actually starts. I dabbed black paint on it just to, you know, make this not one of the rust spots on the Jeep. And then we come straight up through there. So it will be somewhat visible. So you want to make sure you get that line as straight as you can whenever you draw it. And I found that a chalk line works really well. So here we go. Operating a chalk line by yourself isn't the easiest thing whenever you're anchoring it off of the Jeep body, but it worked on the other side. I'm going to try that again. Okay, that gives me my straight cut line now. Coming, I don't know if that shows up very well on the camera, but I've got a blue line here. So I'm going to follow this line and just come straight up over the top and then meet with my white line. And there it is. So we'll get the cutting wheel and get on it. So one thing that I did skip over, if you're following along in the actual typed instructions, the instructions said to have removed already 3 bolts that are under here. There's 3 bolts that run under the fender vertically, and they screw into the your front grille assembly and support the fender on the front. Ultimately, those 3 bolts come out. I'm not removing them yet because they're going to support the junk that I'm getting ready to cut off while I'm cutting it. So we'll make the cut and then I'll take those off. Okay, we're getting ready to make the cut. Before I get started, I just want to share with you in case you don't know about it. This is the Lenox diamond tipped metal cutoff wheel, and they run about 10 bucks on Amazon. I don't know what the life of it is because I haven't wore it out yet. This has been the best 10 bucks I've spent, I think, in a long time. They don't cut quite as fast as the disposable blades, but I don't have to keep changing them, so I'm pretty sure that I come out ahead by buying this one time, 10 bucks, use it until it finally doesn't cut anymore, and then spend 10 bucks and put it on there again. Like I said, Amazon, they're 10 bucks. You can get them, various stores carry them as well, but Lenox is a brand, and they make them for 4-inch grinders and 4.5-inch grinders, and I don't know what else. But anyway, there you go. We're going to get started now. All right, there's a piece we don't need anymore. All right, so obviously, you know, this is pretty jagged here where it's been cut. So next we'll take a grinding wheel and just clean that up a little bit so that it's not as jagged. And then I'm going to take some black paint and touch up the edge so it's not exposed metal. To apply the paint, I just took a black aerosol can and sprayed it into a sweet tea lid and used a Q-tip to dab it along the edge. That's just a temporary, just to stop the rust from starting. Once I get the fenders installed and get a little farther along in this process, then I'm going to clean up underneath and use some paint to completely paint it out on the inside and clean it up, make it look real nice. So So this is just a temporary thing to get me by. That's why I did it with a Q-tip and paint out of a sweet tea lid. Anyway, so now the 3 bolts that we took out here along the grill, we can go ahead and put them back in because we're done with that. Next, we'll lay the new fender in place and use a center punch to set our holes and drill those. As I mentioned earlier, these are the 3-inch fenders from MCE. They have a 6-inch and they had, I don't remember, 2-inch or 1.5 inch. They had something quite a bit smaller. These are the 3-inch. I'm not sure whether they measure 3 inches at, because it's not 3 inches up here. It might be like 3 inches right here that it sticks out off of the fender proper. That's what I'm guessing that it means. So if you go with a 6-inch, I suppose it'll probably stick out, 6 inches from here and then run straight forward. In any event, so we've got the new fender laying in place, and so now we're going to locate it, make sure it's correct, that the position is correct, and then start using a center punch, poke a hole, punch, then we'll use a center punch, make a divot, drill a hole, and I'll drop a screw through. I like to do that just to make sure everything's staying right, and then I'll punch that one, drill a hole, drop a screw through, and work my way on back. So there's 2 different length screws, 1 inch and 3/4 inch, and that's for obvious reasons. Once you look at this, the 3/4 inch one will go up the front, and then there will be a 1 inch one, 2 1 inch ones here where the metal is doubled up, and then another 3/4 inch one back here. So the instructions don't say to do this, but I found that it made things a little bit easier for me. I removed this screw, this bolt, sorry, that's on top here, it holds the old fender to the grill on top. It just made it easier to get this tucked into place, and once I got this all done, then I run that one back in. So I'm going to go ahead and yank that one out and get set up to start punching holes. Just a little tip before I go any further. So this fender hasn't been attached yet. It's just setting up there, and the hood is dropped down on top of it. The reason I'm doing that is to make sure that this fender is positioned exactly like the fender that I've already installed, so that whenever you're standing in front of the Jeep looking back at it, things are symmetrical as much as they can be on a 23-year-old Jeep. So I'll add a comment here, something that wasn't very clear to me in the instructions whenever I did the fender on the other side. As you lay the fender on the Jeep, it has a contour to it, and that contour hugs the inside of the Jeep fender. And I presumed that contour should be matched up. Where I made my mistake, or where I wish I would have done something just a little bit different, is I would have liked to have brought the fender out farther so that the leading edge of the fender was flush with the grill. Just would have been a cosmetic thing. It doesn't hurt anything the way it is. Doesn't even look bad the way it is. It's just, that's something I wish I would have done different. But in that case, the contour of the fender would not have matched exactly the contour of the contour of the MCE fender wouldn't have matched the contour of the existing fender that I'm attaching to inside, as the MCE would have been shifted forward. It's possible that on other year models, that contour lines up perfectly. On this particular installation, it did not, and so I end up with my fender actually set back, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch from the leading edge of the hood, and I would have liked to have lined it up. I would change that now, but I've already drilled and mounted my hood hold down on this side, and if I shift all of this, then I'll end up messing up that hole. So I don't want to do that. I would rather have this and move forward. So for that reason, I set the hood down to make sure that these two lined up, that this one matches that one over there. It does. Now I'll pop the hood back up and we'll start drilling our holes. All right, now with all the holes drilled, we'll get a nut and washer and run them up from the bottom side. So it's a 3/8 inch nut, and then it's an Allen wrench on the top. I don't remember what size it is, but 3/8 inch nut on the bottom, and we'll get these cinched up and then move on. Okay, next we're going to locate the hood hold down, and that process becomes actually quite easy because there are 3 holes in the fender section that is remaining underneath here. So we find those holes on the bottom, drill up, and we have our properly located holes up on top for the bolt and the 2 little tits that we have to line up. So for that you'll need, what is this? I forget. An 11/32 for the bolt and 15/64 for the 2 little tits. You can use smaller drill bits. You can't use bigger ones. These are the biggest ones that fit through the oblong holes without eating out new metal. So you could use a smaller one and use it kind of like a router on this. I mean, it's just plastic, so it'll be pretty easy to do it that way. So starting out with the big one, and we'll locate that hole from the bottom side and come up. So once I poke through, then I use the bit as a router bit and follow the contour of the metal underneath to open the opening up for my open up the hole elliptically so that I can position the hood hold down wherever it needs to be. And now for the smaller bit. Took a minute to find those because they were packed full of mud. I don't know how that happened. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to run this bolt back in right here before I forget it and lose it. And I'll switch to the 15 millimeter for the bottom of this hold down bolt. I'm going to set the hood down first, make sure things line up, and then we'll anchor the hood hold down. That is perfect. What remains of the physical install is connecting it down here at the bottom. Now, the fender is running at an angle, and that angle doesn't match perfectly the body of the Jeep, and I'm sure that that was intentional. Gives it a good angle. As water and mud is slung up there, then it's got a good angle to wash down on. You might be tempted to pull it forward because it's just plastic and make it follow that line. You could do that, but of course it causes this bulge here. It's not the way the fender is intended to be installed. It's intended to lay natural, and then you bolt it down at the location where it lands. So there's a grommet that goes in this hole here, bolt that goes through that, an L bracket that holds it to the body of the Jeep, and this cavity underneath is actually open, so you can reach your hand up in there to operate a wrench to secure that properly. So let's get started with that. First we have to work the grommet into that opening. Bolt through it. Nut and washer on the back side. By the way, all of the nuts that come in this kit are lock nuts. So that's a pretty nice feature that they considered that. So that's it. The physical work of the install of the MCE fenders is done. All that's left is tidying up the lighting and the touch-up paint that I want to do underneath. Bring everything to a common color, black. So I'll mention now, MCE has on the website these little 3/4 inch lights for the side markers. They're 3 wires, so you can wire them up as driving lights and turn signals. They show them on their website as mounted in the side of the fender at this location. I think I'm going to go instead actually into the side of the hood up here, or maybe even down here. I haven't quite decided yet. Punch it right through the fender and the bumper, and have it side indicating there. And then, of course, you need the actual turn signals because they were right here and we deleted them with the fender that we cut out. So, see, a lot of them go after the new style and install a 3-inch round right there. You can do a 3-inch round or a pedestal or you know, whatever you like at this point. So when we get it all finished up, well, that was a dumb way to finish that. So we'll just stop there.